They forced a poor orphan girl, Alicia, to marry a crippled beggar no one respected. But when the wedding ended, the beggar stepped into a black SUV with a driver who called him Sir, and the entire village realized they had just witnessed the biggest twist of their lives. The morning sun had only begun to stretch its fingers over the quiet village when Alicia was already at work. The dew still clung to the grass, and roosters crowed somewhere in the distance, but her hands were deep in cold water, scrubbing dishes that weren't even hers. She had grown used to it, her life of endless chores, her voice swallowed into silence, her presence barely tolerated. At just 19, Alicia carried herself with the grace of someone far older, but not because she wanted to. Life had forced it onto her shoulders like a sack of stones she could never put down. She had lived with Uncle Raymond and Aunt Belinda since she was 11, since the fire that had consumed both her parents and the only home she had known. What should have been a shelter after tragedy had turned into a cage. "Move faster, Alicia," Aunt Belinda barked that morning, stepping out of the house with her scarf tied too tight, her voice sharper than the morning chill. "Do you think we feed you here for free? Those plates won't wash themselves." Alicia lowered her head and worked faster. She knew the rules. If she argued back, she would spend the night outside. If she cried, they would mock her tears. If she dared to ask why, she would feel Uncle Raymond's heavy hand. Inside the house, Samantha and Chloe, her cousins, were still stretching lazily in bed. They wouldn't lift a finger until the smell of breakfast reached their noses. And even then, it was Alicia who would have cooked it. When she finished the plates, her uncle's voice thundered across the compound. "Alicia, where's the firewood? You think this house runs on your beauty?" The sting of his words burned more than the slap that usually followed. Alicia didn't answer. She never did. She had learned that silence was safer than courage. But in her heart, every insult carved itself deep into her memory. Despite the cruelty at home, Alicia's spirit found ways to stay kind. She always greeted the elders in the village, carried baskets for the women at the market, and never laughed when others were mocked. That quiet goodness was what began to draw attention. At first, it was the village boys offering shy greetings. Then, strangers from the city started to appear. Men of means, men who came to the countryside looking for a humble wife. Some came for Samantha or Chloe, but after catching sight of Alicia carrying water or balancing firewood on her head, their interest shifted. One suitor had whispered to Uncle Raymond in frustration, "You said your daughters were beautiful, but who is that girl with the calm eyes?" That single question had lit a firestorm in the house. Aunt Belinda's voice rang out like thunder, her jealousy sharper than knives. "You are the one blocking your cousin's shine," she screamed, throwing Alicia's slippers into the dirt. "Every man comes here and changes his mouth because of you. What do you put in your body, foolish girl?" Alicia could only whisper, "I don't even speak to them." "Shut up!" Uncle Raymond roared, his face twisted with rage. "Since you don't know your place, I'll make sure you never smell marriage. You will marry a madman if possible." The slap that followed left her ears ringing, but worse was the fire in her chest. She looked up at him once, and that single glance earned her another blow. "Don't ever look at me like that again," he spat. From that day, life grew even harsher. She was barred from eating with the family, forced to bathe at the backyard tap, mocked at every turn by Samantha and Chloe. One evening, as Alicia scrubbed the floor, her cousins laughed cruelly. "Go and wear your rags, Alicia." Samantha sneered. "Maybe another rich man will come and propose to you." Chloe smirked. "Or better yet, let her parade her hips like she did when that politician's son came." Their laughter filled the compound, but Alicia stayed silent, her hands gripping the rag tighter. Something inside her had started to crack, but not in a way they could see. It was on a Saturday afternoon when a stranger appeared. He limped into the compound with dusty clothes, a crooked hat pulled low, and a wooden walking stick. His face was shadowed, his body weary, but his presence stirred whispers in the neighborhood. Uncle Raymond greeted him like an opportunity wrapped in rags. "You're serious? You want to marry her?" The man's voice was low, calm. "I have enough for someone who is humble." They shook hands as if sealing a business deal, and Alicia's fate was sold like a basket of yams. That night, Uncle Raymond called a meeting. Alicia stood at the edge of the room, her heart pounding. "We found a husband for you," he declared. She turned, her voice trembling. "Who is he?" "You don't need to ask questions," Aunt Belinda snapped. "He is willing to take you as you are. No bride price, no fuss. Just carry your cursed beauty and go." Samantha and Chloe snorted. "Maybe she wants the governor's son," Chloe mocked. "Shut up, both of you," Aunt Belinda hissed, though her smile revealed her delight. "We are doing her a favor. In fact, the wedding is in 2 weeks." Alicia's lips parted, but no sound came out. 2 weeks. Without her consent. Without her choice. That night, she lay awake on her thin mattress, staring at the cracked roof. The wind whistled through holes like ghosts whispering of her future. Her heart pounded with dread. Was this her destiny? To be handed over to a crippled stranger while her cousins lived freely? The next day, she saw him again. He was seated at the village square, scattering ground nuts for birds. His clothes were the same rags, but his nails were clean, his posture oddly dignified. "Good afternoon, sir," Alicia greeted shyly. He turned. "Alicia, how are you?" Her eyes widened. "You know my name?" "I listened when your uncle shouted it yesterday," he said softly. She almost smiled. "You're the man I'm to marry." "Yes." "Why me?" she whispered. His lips curved into a faint smile. "Because you're different." She blinked. "Different how?" But he offered no explanation. Instead, he rose, stretched, and with his limp exaggerated, walked away. That evening, Samantha and Chloe pounced again. "I heard you were talking to your beggar husband," Samantha sneered. "Better get used to using leaves. He can't afford tissue paper," Chloe added. "Don't worry, maybe he'll crawl to you on all fours at the altar." Alicia endured their laughter, her silence harder than steel. Inside, something was shifting. Shame still stung. Betrayal still burned. But there was also a strange peace, as if the story of her life was about to take a turn no one expected. The days blurred together as preparations, or rather humiliations, were made. Aunt Belinda tossed an old lace gown at her. "Wear this for the wedding. Be grateful I gave you anything at all." Alicia held the stained fabric, her throat tight. "Can I at least fix it?" "Fix what?" Samantha laughed. "So you can look like a queen beside your beggar king?" Chloe burst into giggles. "Don't worry. Everyone will be watching to see if your husband collapses at the altar." Later that night, under the silver half-moon, Alicia sat alone behind the house, hugging her knees. The night was quiet, but her heart was restless. "You're not sleeping," a voice said. She turned sharply. It was him, the beggar. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "If my uncle sees you—" "I know. I'll go soon. I just wanted to talk." "About what?" "About us." His eyes were calm, his voice gentle. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you're not happy. But I want you to know I will never force you. If you want to leave after the wedding, I'll let you go." Her eyes glistened. "Why would you say that?" "Because I'm not here to punish you," he said. "I just wanted someone who would treat me like a human being, not an object of pity. And from the first day I saw you, I knew. You didn't laugh when the children mocked me. You didn't look away when I asked for water. You greeted me with respect. That's why you're different." She swallowed hard. "That's just what I was taught." He smiled faintly. "And that's what makes you rare." They stood in silence, two shadows beneath the moonlight, bound by words neither of them fully understood yet. The night before the wedding, Uncle Raymond held a small gathering. His words rang with false pride. "That girl has been under my roof for years. I fed her, clothed her, and now I'm giving her to a man who accepts her with all her pride. Let this be a lesson. Beauty without respect leads to nothing. Alicia sat quietly, her face blank, her heart empty. Tomorrow was coming, and with it, her fate. The sky that morning was neither bright nor dark, just a dull gray that mirrored Alicia's spirit. She sat in the small room she had called her own for years, staring at the cracked mirror on the wall. The reflection staring back at her looked like someone being punished, not a bride about to be celebrated. The lace gown Aunt Belinda had thrown at her hung loosely from her shoulders. The sleeve was torn, the hem stained. Her lips were dry, her face powdered with the leftover makeup her aunt had shoved into her hands. She looked nothing like the bride she had once glimpsed in town, radiant and glowing. She looked more like a shadow. A knock rattled the thin wooden door. Then came Aunt Belinda's voice, sharp as ever. "They are waiting. Come out." Alicia rose slowly, her feet heavy. She pushed the door open and stepped into the small sitting room. Uncle Raymond sat proudly at the table. Samantha and Chloe perched nearby with smug grins. 3 neighbors whispered at the back, and a tired-looking pastor stood near the doorway, flipping impatiently through his Bible. And there he was, the beggar, Nathan. He stood a little straighter than usual, though still leaning on his walking stick. His clothes were ragged but cleaner than before, as if someone had taken time to wash them. His eyes, calm as always, rested on her with quiet steadiness. "Let's begin," the pastor muttered. "I don't have all day." He read a verse about love and patience, his voice fast, mechanical, as though he had spoken the words 100 times and no longer believed in them. Then he looked at Nathan. "Do you, Nathan Cole, take Alicia as your wife?" "I do," Nathan replied, his voice clear. "And you, Alicia, do you take Nathan as your husband?" Her throat was dry. She looked at her uncle's cold eyes, at her aunt's hard face, at her cousins smirking like vultures. Then she turned to Nathan. His gaze was different. It wasn't mocking, wasn't cruel. For a moment, she felt seen. "I do," she whispered. The pastor clapped his Bible shut. "By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may go." No cheers, no music, no rice or dancing, just silence. Nathan turned to her gently. "Let's go." Alicia followed him out of the house. No one wished her well. Aunt Belinda didn't even glance at her. Uncle Raymond was already lighting his pipe. Samantha and Chloe stayed inside, whispering and laughing as if it were nothing more than a bad joke. The air outside was heavy, but for Alicia, it was strangely calm. She had no tears left to shed. She was done crying. They walked down the dusty path together. She expected they would take the bush road, perhaps stop under some tree, maybe spend the night in the open like beggars. She braced herself for it, but Nathan surprised her. "No," he said, turning her toward the main road. "We have a car." Alicia frowned. "A car?" And then she saw it. Parked quietly under a large tree was a black SUV. Its paint shone like glass, its windows tinted. The moment they approached, a man in a suit stepped out quickly, opened the door, and bowed slightly. "Good afternoon, sir," the driver said. Alicia froze. Her eyes darted to Nathan. The driver had called him sir. Nathan smiled faintly and guided her toward the car. "Sit," he said softly. "You're safe now." The cool rush of air conditioning hit her as she stepped inside. The leather seats smelled expensive. The silence inside the cabin a stark contrast to the noise of her uncle's compound. She sat stiffly, her hands folded on her lap, her chest rising and falling faster than she wanted it to. This wasn't how poor men lived. This wasn't how beggars behaved. Her eyes turned slowly to Nathan. He looked calm, leaning back as if the world were finally allowing him to breathe. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Tell me the truth. Who are you?" He turned his head and looked at her, his eyes steady. "What doesn't make sense?" he asked gently. This, she said, gesturing around the car. The driver. Even the way you're sitting. You're not a beggar. You've never been a beggar. He gave a small smile. I never said I was. Her heart raced. Then who are you? For a moment, he looked out the window, the countryside rolling by in a blur. Then he turned back to her. My name is Nathan Cole. That part is true. Everything else I had to hide. Alicia blinked. Nathan Cole. That name sounds familiar. You may have seen it in the news, he said quietly, or on one of the company boards in the city. Her eyes widened. She had heard that name. Cole Group. A vast empire spanning transport, real estate, agriculture. No, she whispered. You own the Cole Group? He nodded slowly. Yes. The breath left her body. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her mind spinning. But why? She gasped. Why act like a beggar? Nathan's gaze softened. Because I wanted the truth. About your uncle. About your family. About you. She stared at him, her lips trembling. I don't understand. You will, he said gently. Let me explain. He leaned forward, his voice calm but edged with pain. Years ago, my father was a businessman, strong, honest. He built our empire from nothing. Your uncle was one of his trusted men. He brought us into a land deal, said it would double our fortune, but he lied. He forged signatures, sold the land twice, and pocketed the money. By the time my father discovered it, everything was gone. His name was ruined. The shame killed him. He died a broken man. Alicia's hand flew to her mouth. Her uncle, her own blood, had done this? Nathan's voice lowered. Your aunt knew. She helped him hide it. They built their comfort on our ashes. And when I returned years later, I wanted to see if anything in that house still had a clean heart. Tears stung Alicia's eyes. So you came disguised as a beggar? Yes. I wanted to see how they would treat me when they thought I had nothing. And you. He looked at her tenderly. You were the only one who treated me like a human being. You didn't mock me. You didn't look away. You gave me water. You greeted me with respect. That was all I needed to know. Her tears spilled over. So everything was a test, Nathan nodded. Yes, her chest tightened. And when Uncle offered to sell me to you, you agreed. I didn't buy you, Nathan said firmly. I rescued you. He would have thrown you out anyway. But I wanted to see what choice you would make. Whether you would still say yes, even when you thought I was nothing. Silence filled the car, heavy but alive. Alicia looked out the window. Trees rushed past, but her thoughts moved even faster. You watched me the whole time, she whispered. Testing me. I was hoping, he replied softly, for a reason to believe in someone again. And you gave me that. Her lips trembled. You know what hurts the most? What? You were the only person who saw me as a person, even when I thought you were poor, even when you limped and wore rags. You still looked at me like I mattered. And now I find out you're rich, powerful, important, but you never told me. I wanted you to see the real me, Nathan said quietly, before you saw the money. And now what? She whispered. Now, he said, we go to our new home, where you'll be safe, where you'll be respected. Her hands shook slightly. Will I ever go back to the village? If you want to, he said. I do, she said firmly, because they need to see what God did for me. The SUV rolled smoothly onto a wide private road. Gates loomed ahead, tall and golden, cameras blinking. As the vehicle approached, the gates swung open. What lay beyond made Alicia's breath stop. A mansion 3 stories tall rose before her. Fountains danced in the driveway. Flowers lined the walkways, and uniformed staff stood in neat rows waiting. The car stopped. A man in a suit opened the door. Welcome, sir. Madam, welcome. Alicia stepped out slowly. Her ragged lace gown hung from her shoulders, her sandals coated with dust. She looked like a beggar's bride, but every staff member bowed to her. "Good afternoon, madam," they greeted. Nathan took her hand gently. "Come," he said. She followed him inside, her feet landing on polished marble, her eyes rising to golden lights and a staircase that looked like it belonged in a palace. Her heart pounded. Was this real? Every step she took whispered the same truth. Her life would never be the same again. The marble floors echoed softly beneath Alicia's bare sandals. Her old lace gown brushed the polished stone as she walked into the grand hall of the mansion. Golden chandeliers sparkled above, their light scattering like stars across the room. She froze in awe. Her lips parted. Just yesterday, she had been washing clothes in a cracked basin, mocked and spat on. Today, servants bowed to her, calling her Madam. Nathan's hand squeezed hers gently. "This is your home now," he said quietly. Alicia's heart thumped. Home. The word felt foreign on her tongue. The compound she had lived in for 8 years had never felt like one. It was a prison. But here, she felt a kind of peace she had never known. That night, she bathed in warm water for the first time in her life. The maid had brought her a soft gown, pale blue with golden beads along the sleeves. When Alicia looked in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself. For a moment, she wondered if she was dreaming. She stepped out onto the balcony. Below stretched gardens she couldn't see the end of, fountains whispering in the night air. Nathan joined her, standing beside her with his calm, steady presence. "So what now?" she whispered. "Now you live," he replied. "You breathe. You heal." She nodded slowly. "And them? My uncle, my aunt." Nathan's jaw tightened. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't want revenge," she said firmly. "But I want them to know I'm not the failure they thought I was." He smiled faintly. "Then you're already better than them." The next morning, sunlight poured proudly through the golden curtains of Alicia's new room. The sheets were soft, the air clean, the silence soothing. For the first time in years, she had slept without fear of being woken by insults or a bucket of cold water. At breakfast, Nathan sat across from her, dressed sharply in a tailored suit. She, too, had been given a simple but elegant gown. She wasn't used to such clothing, but it fit her like it belonged. "Are you ready?" Nathan asked. "For what?" "To go back," he said simply. Her heart thudded. "Already? You wanted them to see," he reminded her. "And they will." Alicia swallowed hard. "Will they even believe it's real?" "They won't have a choice," Nathan said calmly. By 9 o'clock, the black SUV was parked at the gate. The staff lined up to bow as Alicia and Nathan walked past. The air smelled of roses and polished marble. Alicia carried herself with quiet strength. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't weak. She was ready. The SUV rolled out, its tires humming smoothly on the asphalt. Alicia sat by the window, watching the trees and villages blur past. With each mile, her old world crept closer. Inside, silence stretched, but it wasn't heavy. Nathan's calm presence steadied her. She clasped her hands in her lap, her thoughts swirling. She wasn't going back to beg. She wasn't going back for apologies. She was going back to show them what they tried to bury had grown roots, sprouted leaves, and now towered over them. The village square was unusually quiet when the black SUV glided in. Children stopped their games, their mouths falling open. Women carrying baskets froze in place. Old men squinted, shielding their eyes. "Who's that?" one man asked. "Looks like a minister," another whispered. "No," someone else muttered. "That's a government man." The car slowed to a stop directly in front of Uncle Raymond's compound. The crowd gathered quickly, whispers buzzing like bees. The driver stepped out first, opening the back door with practiced respect. Nathan emerged, tall, composed, his suit shining in the sun. He looked nothing like the limping beggar they had seen dragging himself across the village square days before. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and then Alicia stepped out. The lace gown was gone. She now wore a flowing white and gold dress that glowed under the morning light. Her hair was tied neatly, her skin radiant. The village froze. This was not the girl they had mocked as cursed, the one they had thrown scraps to. This was someone transformed. At the gate, Aunt Belinda stood holding a broom. The broom slipped from her hands. Samantha and Chloe rushed out, their mouths hanging open. Uncle Raymond shuffled slowly to the front, his face pale, his eyes darting between Nathan and Alicia. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Then Nathan turned to his driver. "Bring it." The driver carried a small wooden box forward and handed it to Nathan, who held it firmly before walking to Uncle Raymond. "This," Nathan said, his voice carrying, "is for the debt your family owes me." Uncle Raymond's lips trembled. What is this?" Nathan's eyes were steady. "It's not money. It's the truth." Alicia stepped forward, her heart calm. She looked her uncle in the eye, her voice soft but sharp enough to cut. "You called me cursed," she said. "You said I would marry a madman. You told the world I was nothing." The crowd hushed. Everyone listened. "And yet," Alicia continued, her voice steady despite the tears burning her eyes, "God remembered me." Gasps rippled. Aunt Belinda's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Samantha took a step back. Chloe ducked behind her. Uncle Raymond swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. "I didn't come here to insult you," Alicia said. "I came to show you that even when people try to bury a seed, it can still grow." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. She placed it gently on the bench by the house. "For you and your daughters," she told Aunt Belinda. "Buy something nice." Aunt Belinda's lips quivered. She didn't move. Then Alicia turned to the crowd, her voice rising with a strength she didn't know she had. "I'm not better than anyone here. I'm just proof that your story doesn't end where others leave you." The words hit the square like thunder. Some women wiped their eyes. Children stared wide-eyed. Men shifted uncomfortably, ashamed of the things they had once whispered about her. Alicia turned back to her uncle one last time. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "Thank you for kicking me out," she said. "If you hadn't, I would never have walked into my real life." With that, she stepped back toward the SUV. Nathan opened the door for her. The driver waited silently. She climbed inside, her head held high, her heart lighter than ever. As the SUV pulled away, the village remained frozen in shock. Aunt Belinda clutched her broom as if it were the only thing holding her upright. Samantha and Chloe slunk back into the house, their faces pale. Uncle Raymond sank onto the bench, staring at the envelope on the wood as though it were burning him. Inside the car, Alicia leaned back against the seat, breathing slowly. Nathan glanced at her. "You didn't have to give them anything," he said softly. "I know," Alicia replied. Her eyes stayed on the road ahead. "But I needed to." "Why?" "Because if I left them the way they are," she whispered, "then I would become like them." Nathan smiled faintly. "You're nothing like them." For the first time, Alicia smiled too. Not wide, not triumphant, but peaceful. She turned her gaze back to the passing trees. "You know what I felt when I saw their faces?" "What?" Nathan asked. "Pity," she said simply. Nathan was silent for a moment. Then he said, "That means you're free." Her heart felt light, almost weightless. For years, she had been bound by shame, fear, anger. But now, she realized she wasn't bound anymore. She was free. The SUV rolled back toward the mansion, carrying with it not just two people, but a story rewritten. Alicia was no longer the orphaned maid mocked as cursed. She was the woman who had returned in strength, given grace where none was deserved, and walked away taller. The chapter of humiliation had closed. A new chapter, one of power, forgiveness, and purpose, was just beginning. The SUV purred softly as it rolled through the gates of the mansion. Alicia leaned her forehead against the glass, watching the world outside blur into streaks of green and gold. Her thoughts were still in the village, her uncle's pale face, her aunt's trembling lips, her cousin's sudden silence. The crowd's stunned eyes replayed in her mind like a song she couldn't stop hearing. She had gone back carrying no weapons, no insults, only her presence and her words, and that was enough. When the car stopped, the staff lined up once again, bowing as Nathan and Alicia stepped out. The scent of roses drifted across the driveway. Fountains splashed in the sunlight, and for the first time since she entered this house, Alicia felt as if she belonged. Inside. Lunch was waiting. They sat in the dining hall, sunlight pouring through tall glass windows. Silver spoons clinked against porcelain plates, though Alicia barely touched her rice. Her appetite was gone, replaced with a restless energy that pulled at her chest. Nathan set his fork down and leaned back. His eyes searched hers quietly. "You're still thinking about them," he said. She nodded. "Yes. You gave them mercy when they didn't deserve it." Her voice was soft but firm. "I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. I wanted to walk away lighter." Nathan studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "That's the most powerful thing anyone could say." Alicia lowered her gaze, fiddling with the edge of her napkin. "Do you think they'll change?" "Maybe," Nathan said. "Maybe not. But you've done your part. That's all that matters." His words sank into her heart like sunlight through water. Later that afternoon, Nathan led her into a part of the mansion she hadn't yet seen. They walked through wide corridors lined with paintings and portraits of his family. Finally, he stopped before a pair of carved double doors and pushed them open. Inside was a room filled with sewing machines, bolts of fabric stacked neatly on shelves, and the faint smell of lavender. Alicia froze. "What is this place?" Nathan's voice softened. "My mother loved tailoring. Even after my father became successful, she still sewed for women in the village. After she died, I built this room in her memory." Alicia walked slowly through the space, running her hand across the smooth metal of one of the machines. The room hummed with quiet purpose. It didn't smell like wealth. It smelled like dignity. "It smells like peace," she whispered. Nathan smiled. "That's what it's for." She turned to him. "You've been alone for so long." "I had to be," he admitted. "Too much noise, too many people pretending. I needed to see the truth for myself. And now?" His eyes held hers. "Now I have someone I don't need to pretend with." Her breath caught. She looked away quickly, her cheeks warm. That night, Alicia sat in the living room, staring at a photo on the wall. Nathan, as a boy, sat on his father's lap, both dressed in matching white clothes, smiling without fear. Nathan joined her on the couch. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken memories. "Do you ever miss them?" she asked quietly. "Every day," Nathan said. "Do you think they'd be proud of you?" He nodded slowly. "I think so." Alicia leaned back, her eyes on the photograph. "There's something I haven't said." "What is it?" "I forgive them," she whispered. Nathan turned to her, his brows lifting. "My uncle, my aunt, my cousins, all of them. Not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace." Nathan's face softened, pride flickering in his eyes. "That's the strongest thing anyone has ever said to me." She smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "Maybe now I can finally start again." "You already have," he said. The days that followed carried Alicia into a new rhythm. She no longer woke to insults or chores shouted at her. Instead, she woke to sunlight filtering through golden curtains, to breakfast waiting, to a life she never imagined. But even in this new comfort, her heart wasn't content to just rest. One morning, she stood with Nathan in the middle of a half-built compound, just outside the mansion grounds. Cement blocks were stacked neatly. Workers moved with steady rhythm, hammers striking, shovels scraping. "This will be the women's hostel," Alicia said, pointing toward the foundation. "For those with no homes." Nathan nodded. "And that side will be the skill center," she added proudly, "where they'll learn tailoring, soap making, food processing, anything that can help them build their lives." Nathan looked at her, admiration softening his face. "You've turned your pain into purpose." Alicia's voice was steady. "Isn't that what life is about?" He said nothing, but the respect in his eyes said more than words ever could. A week later, Alicia was invited to speak at a gathering of young girls in the town hall. They were orphans, poor, abandoned, faces she recognized because she had once been one of them. When she entered, the room fell silent. She didn't wear jewels. She didn't wear heavy makeup. She wore a simple white gown and black flats, but her presence filled the hall like a quiet fire. The girls clapped softly, some too shy to look up. Alicia smiled warmly, holding the microphone as if it were simply another conversation. "My name is Alicia," she began, "and just like you, I didn't have much." The room stilled. "I lost my parents when I was 11. I was moved from place to place like a sack of beans. I ate leftovers. I wore torn clothes. I slept on mats that scratched my skin." Some girls lowered their heads. Others wiped tears quietly. "But let me tell you what I didn't lose," Alicia continued. Her voice was firm now, steady. "I didn't lose my kindness. I didn't lose my heart." She looked around, meeting their eyes one by one. "People will call you useless. They'll say you're too poor, too weak, too nothing. But listen to me carefully. You are not too anything. You are enough." The room leaned closer. "You don't need a rich man to save you. You don't need a title to make you important. Just be good. Stay kind. Work hard. Help others. And when the door finally opens for you, and it will, walk in with your head high." The hall erupted in clapping. Some girls stood. Others cried openly. One girl ran forward and hugged her tightly. Alicia hugged her back, whispering, "I believe in you." That night, back at the mansion, Alicia sat on the balcony with Nathan, sipping tea as the stars shimmered above. "That speech," Nathan said softly, "was powerful." She shook her head. "I was just speaking from my heart." "That's why it worked." She looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "Sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if you never came to that village?" Nathan smiled faintly. "Then maybe you'd still be sweeping the compound and eating cold food." She chuckled. "Maybe." He would reach for her hand. "The truth is, Alicia, I would have found you anyway." Her brows rose. "Why?" "Because good hearts always shine," he said, "even if it takes time." Her eyes softened, her heart swelling with something she couldn't name. The next morning, Alicia tied her hair with a blue scarf, dressed simply, and told Nathan, "I want to visit my parents' graves." He nodded. "Tomorrow, then." When they arrived, the grass had grown tall around the mango tree. The earth was dry, but the place carried a quiet sacredness. Alicia knelt, her fingers brushing the soil gently. "Mama, Papa," she whispered. "I made it." Her voice trembled. "I'm not hungry anymore. I'm not sleeping outside anymore. The people who mocked me now bow when I pass. But more than that, I'm happy, truly happy." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly, her heart swelling with both grief and gratitude. "Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for teaching me kindness. Even when I had nothing, I still carry your words every day." She stood slowly. Nathan came beside her, his hand warm in hers. Together, they stood in silence under the mango tree, the wind rustling leaves like a quiet blessing. "Let's build something here," she said softly. "A small shelter for people to rest. Let's plant flowers. Let's make this place beautiful. Nathan nodded. We will. Weeks passed, and the story of the beggar's bride spread across towns. Some mocked, some twisted the tale. But those who knew the truth knew this. Alicia had risen from ashes, not just with wealth, but with purpose. Her centers began opening, one after another. Women were trained, orphans found shelter, bread came out of ovens Alicia had funded. And everywhere she went, people looked not at her clothes, but at the calm fire in her eyes. One afternoon, walking through a bakery she had built for the women of the village, Alicia stopped by a young girl kneading dough. The girl's hands trembled as she looked up. "What's your name?" Alicia asked gently. "Chisholm," the girl whispered. "Do you like it here?" The girl nodded shyly. "Yes, madam." Alicia smiled, handing her a bottle of cold water. "Do you know why I built this place?" Chisholm shook her head. "Because once, someone told me I was worth nothing," Alicia said softly. "And I promised myself I'd never let another girl feel like that again." The girl smiled, hope flickering in her eyes. "One day, you'll help others too." Alicia told her. That evening, Nathan returned home with a small box in his hand. "A gift," he said. Alicia opened it slowly. Inside was a simple silver necklace with one word engraved on a heart-shaped pendant. "Seen." Her breath caught. "You remembered." Nathan looked at her with a softness that melted her. "I saw you when no one else did, and I'll keep seeing you every day." She slipped the necklace around her neck, tears blurring her eyes. Then she hugged him tightly. For the first time, she didn't feel like the orphan left behind. She felt like a woman reborn. It had been 3 months since Alicia returned to her village in glory. 3 months since she stood before her uncle and aunt, no longer a servant girl in rags, but a woman who carried dignity like a crown. Yet to her, those moments still felt fresh. Not because she held on to bitterness, she had let that go, but because every morning when she looked in the mirror, she saw the proof of transformation. The girl who once scrubbed floors under insults had become the woman who built bridges out of wounds. The Cole Foundation was no longer just a dream. With Nathan's support and her relentless determination, Alicia had opened 5 centers across the state. Each one was dedicated to women and children who had been pushed aside by society. Widows with no income, girls forced to drop out of school, mothers abandoned with hungry mouths to feed. At the sewing center, the whir of machines filled the air as women stitched uniforms, dresses, and bags. At the bakery, ovens glowed as fresh bread slid out onto trays, the smell drifting into the streets. At the training halls, laughter mixed with the sound of learning, soap bubbling in molds, women carefully icing cakes, children scribbling their first letters on chalkboards. Everywhere Alicia went, she was greeted not as the beggar's bride, but as Mama Alicia, the one who lifted others from the ground because she knew what the ground felt like. One bright morning, Alicia was invited to speak at a university. The hall was filled with hundreds of students, young women in colorful dresses, young men in shirt sleeves leaning forward in their chairs. Cameras flashed, notebooks opened, pens clicked. When she stepped onto the stage, the crowd hushed. She wore no jewels, only a simple navy gown and the silver necklace Nathan had given her, the one that said "Seen." She took the microphone, her voice calm but carrying weight. "My name is Alicia Cole," she began. "But before I was a Cole, I was just a girl in a village, an orphan, a servant in my uncle's house." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I was called cursed. I was mocked, slapped, insulted. They said I would never marry, that I would die poor. For years, I believed them. For years, I thought maybe I was truly worthless." The hall was silent. "But listen carefully," Alicia said, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Worth is not something anyone gives you. Worth is something you carry, even when no one else sees it. I carried mine while I washed their floors. I carried mine when I ate leftovers in the dark. And one day, that worth carried me out of the shadows. Her voice rose with quiet fire. Some of you here feel invisible. Some of you think your background defines your future. But let me tell you this. You are not your pain. You are not your poverty. You are not the names they call you. You are what you choose to become. Applause erupted, loud and unstoppable. Students rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some with tears in their eyes. Alicia raised a hand, her voice softening. Be kind. That's the secret. It was kindness that saved me, and it is kindness that will change the world. That night, back at the mansion, Nathan and Alicia sat together in the library. Piles of documents lay on the desk, plans for more centers, sponsorship requests, letters of gratitude. Nathan leaned back, studying her as she signed another paper. You've become the kind of woman people will write about in books, he said. Alicia looked up, smiling faintly. Or gossip about in markets. He chuckled. Either way, you're shining. She put the pen down, her eyes meeting his. Do you ever wonder why me? Out of everyone you could have chosen, why me? Nathan's gaze softened. Because you saw me when no one else did, and because you kept your heart good when life gave you every reason not to. Power can build empires. Money can buy loyalty. But kindness is rare. And you had it. Her eyes grew wet. She reached for his hand. I still can't believe this is real sometimes. He squeezed gently. It's real, and it's only the beginning. Months passed, and Alicia's name spread beyond her state. Newspapers wrote headlines, from orphan to philanthropist. TV shows invited her to speak. International organizations called, wanting her to share her story. Yet despite the cameras and microphones, she never changed. She still woke early, prayed by the window, and walked through her centers with the same humility as the girl who once carried water on her head. Her uncle and aunt eventually sent another letter. This time, it wasn't bitter or prideful. It was simply a note that said, we are proud of you. We are sorry. When Alicia read it, her eyes softened. She had already forgiven them long ago. Now, she only prayed they would forgive themselves. One Sunday afternoon, Alicia and Nathan drove to the mango tree where her parents were buried. The shelter she had promised now stood tall, a small white building with benches inside, flowers planted all around. Villagers came often to rest, to pray, to reflect. As Alicia knelt at the graves, children from the village ran up to her, laughing, their hands full of flowers they had picked along the way. She gathered them close, her heart swelling with gratitude. Mama, look, shining on, one of the girls shouted. We planted new roses by the fence. Alicia smiled, hugging her. Beautiful, just like you. She looked at the graves again, her voice a whisper. Mama, Papa, I told you I'd make you proud. I hope I have. The breeze rustled through the mango leaves, as if answering. Years later, the Alicia Cole Foundation had centers across the country. 10, then 20, then more. She had spoken at the United Nations, shaken hands with presidents, hugged orphans whose names she never forgot. Yet through it all, she wore the same necklace, the one word engraved close to her heart. Seen. And whenever people asked her, what changed your life? Was it money? Was it marrying a billionaire? She always gave the same answer. No, she would say gently. It was kindness. That's it. Kindness changed everything. The story of Alicia isn't just about escaping pain. It's about transforming it. It's about proving that no matter who tries to bury you, seeds still grow. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you that kindness has the power to change everything. And if you believe the world needs more kindness, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to this channel for more stories that will open your eyes and your heart.